Hi, my name is Daniel Jenkins. I'm a content producer and the head football writer at Betting Expert News. I'm going to take you through some of my favorite betting markets. Before we start, here are three markets that I tend to avoid. Coming in at number 3, we've got the novelty markets, things like offsides, headed shots, coin toss, first corner. These novelty markets are far down to chance more so than anything else. You're not backing on any insider knowledge you may have, any prior knowledge. You're just taking a stab in the dark, and I don't like that because these bookmakers have such high margins for these kind of markets. You're going to lose far more often than you're going to win. I've seen markets as strange as backing a player to have a header on target in the first half of the match. The mental gymnastics needed to justify that, it just baffles me. You're taking a stab in the dark, and when the bookmakers have such high margins for these markets, you're going to lose far more often than you're going to win. Coming in at number 2, you've got halftime, full-time. Again, there are far too many variables to take into account here. I don't like half betting in general. Over the course of a football match, I think the halftime break and backing either half of that side, it's just an arbitrary stopping point. I don't really think it's worth it. You don't take it into account things like the flow of a match. So halftime, full-time are seen by many as a good way to boost odds. If a team is the big favorite to win a match, you'll back them to win the first half and the second half combined. This doesn't happen as often as you think. A team could dominate a match, but they may not score in either half of the game. Again, we've got very high margins for the bookmakers, which is always an alarm bell for me. If you back a team to win by a high margin, back them to win by 2 goals, back them to win by 3 goals. Don't back them to win either half. Number 1, correct score. These have massive margins for the bookmakers, and 1 goal can change everything. I really try to avoid backing correct score lines. It's so difficult to predict football matches anyway, but backing them to finish on a specific score line, you're doing 2 hands behind your back, let alone 1. So football matches can follow patterns. Yes, a team can dominate a match, but if you're backing them to win a game 4-0, you back them to dominate the match and then stop dominating the match when they've already scored 4. That doesn't always happen. Teams can get goals at any time in the match. It's much better to go for winning margins here rather than correct score lines. Back them to win -2, back them to win -3, rather than backing them to win 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. Now for my favorite market. Coming in at number 3, we've got over and under on the goals market. It's simple to follow, simple to bet on. You're just backing over and under on how many goals are going to be scored in the match, total goals. If you bet over 2.5 goals in a game and exactly 3 goals are scored in a game, your bet wins. If you back over 3.5 goals and 3 goals are scored, you're going to lose. If you back exactly 3 goals to be scored in a game and exactly 3 goals are scored, you'll get what's called a push. You'll get your stakes back. I love the simplicity of it. I love how easy it is to customize. Things like halves, quarter goals, 3/4 goals, you can throw all that in there. If you bet on over 2.75 goals, you're essentially making 2 bets. Half of your stake goes on over 2.5 and half of it goes on over 3. If exactly 3 goals are scored in the game, then 1/2 of your bet, the over 2.5 half, that's going to win because over 2.5 goals are scored. The other half of your bet, the over 3 half, that gets pushed because exactly 3 goals were scored. These markets have much lower margins due to the popularity, the competition. There are so many betting companies out there. All of them want to have the lowest prices, take the lowest returns, have the lowest margins, give the value back to the punters. And especially for these popular markets, that's where you're going to find the value. To get ahead, I study average goals tallies on bettingexpert.com, or I can use external sites such as soccerstats.com. I like to break it down into home and away tallies to see whether a side scores and concedes a lot of goals away from home, whether they score and concede a lot of goals at home. Another good approach is to look at XG. Maybe a side is vastly underperforming their XG. Again, if you want to go even further with that, sometimes I like to look at XG and get ahead of that, because I know that if a team is underperforming their XG, a lot of people are going to be backing them to start scoring more goals. Another good approach is to spot trends and extend that over a season. Have a look at average goal tallies so far in matches, extrapolate that over a 38-game campaign. Can you really expect a team to score that many goals in this many games? Can you really expect them to concede this many goals in that many games? Number 2, outrights. I love outright markets. I think it's a much better way of backing teams that I think are undervalued or overvalued rather than backing them in specific matches. You're backing them, these outright markets are backing a team to win the title, to get relegated, to finish bottom, finish in the top 6, in the top 4, top half, bottom half. You can bet, that way you can bet on pretty much every Premier League team. If you have a pretty fair idea of where a side is going to end up, if you think they're being undervalued or overvalued by the bookmakers, my advice is to look at outright markets. Don't just look at them before the season starts. These odds are going to fluctuate and change with results. For example, Arsenal lost their first 3 matches of a season. Those outright markets, those outright bets, backing them to finish in the top half, finish in the top 6, finish in the top 4, those odds absolutely skyrocketed as a result of that. Personally, it's my favourite way to bet on the Premier League. I think I have far higher win rates for outrights than I do for in-match betting. Coming in at number 1, it's the Asian handicap, the undisputed king of betting markets. It encapsulates and brings in so many other betting markets into a fully customizable market. You've got 1x2 in there, you've got draw no bet in there. It's very similar to the total over-under on goals market, but rather than backing the number of total goals that are scored in the match, you're backing the outcome of the match. You're backing a side to win, backing a side to lose, backing a side to win by 2 goals, 3 goals, 4 goals, and so on. If you're backing, for example, Manchester United minus 1.5 goals, you're basically saying that you think Manchester United is still going to win the match if you take those 1.5 goals away from their tally at the end of the game. If they've won it 3-0 and you back Manchester United minus 1.5, your bet wins because they still win 1.5-0. If you back them minus 1.5 and the match finishes 1-0, they only win 1-0, your bet loses. It basically makes the 1x2 market fairer. It's a great way to bet on matches that are a little more one-sided. This is what makes the Asian handicap market so exciting, is because you have that power, you have that control that's given to you, the punters, and because it's such a competitive market amongst bookmakers, you're going to get lower margins, you're going to get higher returns, higher value. That about wraps it up. Those are my 3 favorite and least favorite betting markets to bet on. If you want more expert advice and tips, follow bettingexpert.com.